So my name's Shane Kunkle. I'd like to welcome you to the Lupulin Exchange community. We're really excited to be at the 2017 American Hop Convention and get to know all the people in this room. Thank you guys so much for your time today. Special thanks to Michelle at the Oregon Hop Commission and HGA for the acreage data we're going to be looking today. I'd also like to thank my fellow presenters, Chris, and Bart. This has been a fantastic conference. Strong work so far, Chris and Bart. For future reference, the worst spot in the world to present is right after Bart Watson, if you care. If you guys don't know Bart, he publishes all types of amazing stuff. He just wrote a great piece on the effects of legalization of marijuana on craft brewing, which was great. Check him out. He's always spot on, but following him in a presentation is pretty much the worst. So don't do that. Oh, Lordy. Why is this not working? Let me go here. Okay. Here's my presentation today. So we're already done the top left, so there's 3 parts. Before I'm getting started, I'm going to be selfish and start by complaining about the type of abuse I endure at work every day. Oops, why is this not? There we go. So this is a post on our social media account on Tuesday morning. It was meant to drum up some publicity for this exchange being at this conference. John Bryce is the guy in red on the right. He writes, the Lupulin Exchange will be at the American Hop Growers Convention, blah, 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 marketing stuff. Also, don't believe a word of Shane's presentation. He's pretty much always making things up. We're really only sending him because John's wife is about to give birth. So I want to thank John for that, for embarrassing me in front of thousands of people online. It's probably also a good lesson for everyone here to know that John Bryce will throw you underneath a bus the first chance he gets. So don't trust that guy. Just kidding. Anyways, so let's get to the presentation. This is me. I'm a software developer. I write lots of code. I'm mostly focused on websites and things that run on the web. My career started a long time ago at Virginia Tech. I graduated with honors in computer engineering. Since then, I've been writing code professionally for about 21 years, all of it at software startups. Along the way, we built a great software team. We can take ideas to reality very quickly. And some of the examples of companies that I've built include a custom web design shop that developed one of the first in-browser CMS systems, social webcam community. About 20 years ago, we built an application that was downloaded 8 million times. It had a video chat to all types of stuff, including AOL Instant Messenger. Social media company that puts sports fans in charge. Data analytics company that helps our customers manage millions of rows of granular data, but also creates easy-to-use reports for upper management. And finally, an integrations company that specializes in connecting and reporting on data from large enterprises. About 2 years ago, my buddy John Bryce, my evil friend, called me with a really cool idea, which marked the birth of the exchange. I don't know, I think a lot of you know John. He's everywhere in the craft beer scene. He currently serves as a technical outreach director for Master Brewers. He also consults and does other beer things. But if the exchange was born, then John and I are the parents. I'm the technical side, he's the brewing side. And it can be like a married couple at times. However, if you only remember one thing from my presentation today, all the charts, all the graphs you're going to see, remember this next slide. If we're a married couple, John is the woman and I'm the man. This, my friends, is a dish I call revenge, and I serve it cold. But anyways. All right, so back to the exchange. I asked Darren Kopp, who's one of the better developers I've worked with, to join me. John brought in Jesse Pappas, who a lot of you have worked with in the front of the house. He's great. And most recently, we've hired AJ, who's that direction. Oh, he's moving around filming, I think. Anyways, he's over here. He's 2-3 months in. It's been a great synergy of industry knowledge and software development. We even have a 6 Sigma black belt on staff. I don't actually know what that means, but my best translation is badass data scientist. So this is the exchange. It actually looks it looks like green in here. We're in the light green box. The exchange got its start with the orange marketplace towards the bottom. In some ways, the exchange is like the eBay of hops. Our marketplace enables folks who are long on hops to meet folks who are short, and they balance. A few important things about this image before we move on. First, while our marketplace will always be at the core, there's so much of what we've developed that's dedicated to brokers and growers. I'm talking about the 4 colored boxes across the top. The next section has all types of stuff from the green box, the industry analytics, there's all types of graphs. We'll look at that in a second. Second, I want to point out that the location of the industry data in the middle of this slide. This data is representative of the entire industry. It's not specific to one broker or grower. We get data from all over. And finally, the exchange really, really likes our light green box in the middle of the image here. We're really good at the things in our light green box, like software in our community. We don't like going outside of our light green box. We also are smart enough to know we're not good at the things outside of our light green box. The hops industry is a very delicate ecosystem, and we have no interest in becoming or supplanting the things in black on the outsides here, brokers, growers, or brewers. Our win is partnering with the folks in this room and solving technical problems together. So, on to the market report card here. We're going to start at the top. We're going to look at 3 quick bubbles here, and then we'll end with our report card in the middle. First, some background. At the exchange, we have 2 ways to organize varieties. First, we organize by volume. That's basically total volume sold or total volume listed for sale. The top tier is our bread and butter. This contains about 20 varieties, make up 80% of the volume of our site. Middle tier is about 25 varieties, only 10% of the site. Still does well. There's some notable varieties in here, but it only makes up 10%. The final third category contains over 200 varieties that have sold in the last year on the site, but it's only 10% of the volume, so it's the long tail, obviously. Second, we cut our data by price categories. You can see them there. So why do I bring this up? It's because we always want to be sure that the data we're comparing is apples to apples. For the rest of the presentation, we'll clearly label each variety and graph as appropriate. But know that the graphs and data you're seeing are only contrasting what we call like varieties. That means varieties that have about the same volume and sales price. It's very important, throws all your numbers off if you start, our indicators and whatnot. So finally, we really got into this survey. The week before, we asked the exchange community questions about the varieties in my presentation today. The questions range from, what varieties do you use at your brewery? And how much? We asked you to rank them. What varieties do you expect to be short and long on in the coming year? Your contract positions. And do you expect to use more or less of specific varieties in the coming year? So the exchange community is awesome. We're always talking to our brewers. We had hundreds of responses in just a few days. So our data scientists scrambled earlier this week and worked it into my presentation. So you're going to see that as part of our grades here. And that brings us to our report card. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this right now. I'm going to dive into and show you what each grade means. The first 2 columns are Lupulin Exchange assigned columns. The third column is our brewer grade from our survey. The acreage is from USDA. That is an indication of whether acreage is going up and down. And overall puts it all together. It's how we think it'll continue to perform on the exchange. So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So I'm going to take a look at a variety that's performing really well on the exchange right now. It's a little overwhelming. Let me show you around. Top left of every card is basic information. We can see that Mosaic is the 4th largest variety on volume. Hop alerts are a measure of how many brewers want to be notified when the variety is listed for sale. Mosaic is number 3 in this metric. At the bottom is our report card from Mosaic. The third column shows the exact percentile for each grade Mosaic received. Higher is better. Mosaic performed better than 81% of like varieties for supply and demand, better than 67% for price stability, and so on. So I'm going to zoom in and show you what these grades mean. Supply and demand tells us how much of each variety is selling on the exchange. What's listed is actually selling. The thin vertical line of the box plot tells us that tier 1 varieties sell between 4% and 67% of what's listed. The higher, the better. So the blue box is the gradient, the 25th to 75 percentile. In English, that means that 50% of tier 1 varieties sell between 26 and 50% of what's listed for sale. The dark blue is the median. Tier 1 varieties at 34%. Mosaic gets an A- here because 53% of what's being listed is selling right now, which is better than 81% of like varieties. Since this is our first chart, I'm also going to point out the blue boxes in the bottom of the corners. The box in the bottom right will always show you the exact percentile. So for this metric, so you can tell that Mosaic, you can easily compare it. Mosaic's better than 81% of varieties in this metric. The bottom left identifies either volume, tier, or category. We measure price stability in two ways. On the left, the blue bar chart shows us the weight listed in light blue versus the weight purchased in dark blue. On the same graph, the line chart shows us Mosaic's average list price in light blue versus the average sales price in dark blue. This graph we're looking at right now, actually tells the story of the 2015 crop year for all varieties really nicely. You can see that early in the crop year on the left, most things that were being listed were selling at a pretty high price. However, in the second half of the year, on the right, we see that lots of Mosaic was listed, increasing supply resulted in falling prices, and only about half of what's listed is selling, which we saw in the last graph. This shows you the competitive advantage that brokers and growers have on the exchange early in the crop year. Brewers don't start dumping their hops till about halfway in the year. So if you're getting your hops on 6 months ahead of time, you're going to get better prices and it's going to sell quickly. So these falling prices might sound bad to you, but what happens, this happens to all varieties throughout the crop year. If you look closely, you'll notice that the sales price of Mosaic is actually 9% higher than the list price. Buyers are paying the prices that sellers are asking for as the price goes down slowly. So that's how we get a net increase. You can see at the bottom, 100%, Mosaic is the best tier 1 hop by this metric. On the right of the chart, we see how fast Mosaic is falling in regards to other varieties. Mosaic doesn't perform nearly as well in this category. My guess is it's not totally a Mosaic's fault. I think it's because of irrational prices to start the year, which have slowly adjusted down, obviously. These are much closer to contract prices at this point. So good news on the left, bad news on the right. Mosaic gets a B- here. Next, we'll show you pieces of data from our brewer survey. Starting on the left, this is, we asked the exchange community to rank the amount of each variety they use in their brewery. We can see that most responses had Mosaic in their top 5, and brewers use more Mosaic than 77% of other varieties. The middle chart shows us how balanced brewers expect to be next year. About 2 times more folks will be short or shopping for Mosaic rather than selling, so Mosaic will be harder to find on the exchange than 77% of other varieties. Finally, on the right, we measure how brewers expect to use their use of Mosaic to change next year. This graph's kind of outrageous. As you can see, one lone soul expects to use less, and 106 brewers expect to use more. So altogether, we've got really strong demand for Mosaic. It gets an A in brewer demand. Finally, to pair all this up, we look at how acreage is changing for Mosaic. The planted acreage is the bar chart. It's blue. It's been on a really good tear, obviously. Acreage for all varieties have been growing, though. So is Mosaic growing faster or slower than the average? For an answer, we look at the line charts. The light blue line chart shows us Mosaic's average growth, and the average of all other varieties is in dashed gray. 2015, growth from Mosaic was outrageous, blew the poor little gray average out of the water. But in 2016, the growth of Mosaic came back down to earth. Mosaic growth is much closer to the average of all varieties here. So, to summarize, it's pretty obvious the exchange community loves Mosaic, and we see strong price visibility and demand. Mosaic's acreage is growing, but has slowed a lot in 2016, and we feel pretty appropriate given such strong demand. So Mosaic's overall grade of A indicates that we expect more strong performance from Mosaic on the exchange in the coming year. So to finish your education, I'm going to zoom into a variety that is kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum from Mosaic. In supply-demand, you can see that Cascade is almost on top of the median. It gets an average grade because it's right on top average. It's selling 37% of what's listing. Moving to price, if we look at the bar charts on the left graph, we can see that this is not a new thing for Cascade. Varieties generally sell best at the start of the year, quarter 1 or 2, but even then Cascade was selling at best half of what was being listed. Quarters 3 and 4, obviously lots more being listed, and sales volumes just not rising much. The line charts there are showing us the worst case scenario for pricing. In the last half of this year, the light blue average list price is way higher than the dark blue sales price. People continue to list Cascade for sale in the $6 to $7 range, and it's only currently selling for $5 per pound. On the right chart, we see more bad news about the price stability. Cascade's price is dropping faster than average, landing it in the lower 13th percentile. Combined, Cascade gets an F for price. Brewer survey data contains good and bad news. Like we knew, the left graph shows us that brewers use more Cascade than any other variety in my presentation today. The right graph shows us they plan to increase their usage next year. However, the middle graph shows us what we were fearing, is that more than 3 times the brewers expect to be selling than buying Cascade on the exchange next year. So moving on to the acreage chart, we almost wondered. I was cheering because we thought Cascade was starting to adjust in 2015. It only grew 3%, which really matched its performance on the exchange. But then 2016 happened, and the acreage increased sharply for Cascade, being a lot closer to the average. So we feel that the acreage growth is too strong for Cascade given its recent struggles in the exchange, and we give it an overall D grade. And one thing I want to mention before moving on is that we're not predicting the death of Cascade or any other variety in our grades today. Any, and I mean any, variety will sell quickly on the exchange as long as it's priced right. Brewers tell us they're going to use a lot more large quantities of Cascade, and its sales volume is huge on the exchange. The bad news is that Cascade's listing volume dwarfs its sales volume by 3 times on the exchange. Also, we expect 3 times more sellers than buyers on the exchange in the coming year. So we expect more of the same from Cascade on the exchange, lots of supply, and brewers selling below contract prices. So you guys are all educated now. I'm going to review these varieties in order, but I'm going to go pretty quickly and not dive so much into each one. Calypso is a little hop I root for. It's our second hop, and it is far and away the smallest acreage, just 80 acres. But Calypso shows up on all types of reports, so I wanted to include it here today. As you can see from our top grades, Calypso is solidly above average on the exchange. What's listed sells better than 69% of other varieties, and on average sells for 10% higher than its listed price. Brewer grades were a little surprising. Its 8th percentile on the left is kind of, brewers aren't using a lot of it yet, but it's only got 80 acres, so that kind of makes sense. The other two are a bit more surprising, though, as brewers really appear balanced in both categories, which is kind of weird for a small quantity hop. Either way, very small production, little acreage growth, and above average performance means that we're going to expect more from Calypso in the coming year, strong overall grade. Centennial, it performs about average on the exchange. We can see from supply and demand that, oops, that's not supply and demand. Most of what sells, listed as sells. The only bad news here is price. It's weaker than we like. Both charts here show bad trends. On the left, we have the dark blue line going below the light blue line again, which we don't like seeing. On the right, the price is falling quite a bit quicker than average. But there's good news here too. The B grade at the third grade tells us that the community really likes Centennial. They use more of it than 85% of other varieties, and 7 times more brewers plan to increase their usage next year. We love the acreage here. It's growing slow and steady, slower than other varieties on average. So our B+ grade factors that into account. We expect Centennial to continue its solid performance on the exchange. Chinook is another example of a variety that has a mixed report card, but the acreage is growing slowly, so it owns a good grade. Its performance on the exchange is mixed. It sells better than 69% of the varieties on the exchange. And on the right, we see that the price is holding up quite well, better than 80% of varieties. However, on the left, we see larger quantities of Chinook being available now in quarter 3, quarter 4 as the brewers got involved, and the selling price starting to drop below the average. Brewer data is good news. On the left, we see the brewers use quite a bit of Chinook, and on the right is more good news. They expect to increase their usage. But in the end, Chinook's saving grace is that you can see the red arrow pointing down. Chinook is growing very slowly, far below the average in 2016. So we expect Chinook to continue to be a steady performer, and it gets a B grade. So Citra. Obviously, this variety needs no introduction. When you compare Citra to other varieties released, maybe within a few years of it, it's insane how El Dorado or whatever. It's insane how this proprietary has blown up and taken the industry by storm. It's our top volume hop on the exchange. It's also #1 for hop alerts. And the brewing community just loves this variety. On the left, we can see that they use more of it than any variety besides Cascade. In the middle, we can see that we expect about 2 times more buyers than sellers next year. And on the right, we see everybody and their brother plans to use more Citra in the coming year. We're really happy with Citra's price. There's signs of weakness in the top grade. Only 24% of what's being posted is currently selling on the exchange, and it's sold slower than Mosaic, Falconer, Simcoe, and Dorado this year. So we were kind of surprised by that. The final factor that really gave us pause is Citra's crazy acreage growth. 2015 was 170%, and that was followed in 2016 by 150%. So weaker than expected supply and demand, continuing acreage growth earned Citra a final grade of a B. Actually, I have B minus here, but anyways. Citra gets a few bonus points because it's Citra, and obviously brewers are going to use a lot of it in the coming year, but that's our grade. Amarillo is another proprietary that needs no introduction, starting with pricing. On the left, I just opened up the CD-ROM drive. That's funny, sorry. This computer will probably do something now. We can see that the price is holding up better than 56%, which we like. On both graphs, we see Amarillo is falling faster than average. And we think, again, my guess is that Amarillo is suffering again because of irrational prices to start the year. It started the year as one of our highest priced varieties, but has since fallen into our second $10 to $10, $15 category. But let's look at the brewer data. On the left, you see the brewers' use falls in the lower 50th percentile. That might be because brewers have a hard time getting their hands on it. The middle chart shows you that brewers expect to be shorter on Amarillo than any other variety. So given Amarillo's popularity, we thought its slide last year would really surprised us. So it earns an average but not high score of B minus. Falconer's is a bit of an interesting case. On the left, we see that supply has been very tight until Q4. It's a strong hop for us. Falconer's is number 9 overall in volume. But we've seen a lot more supply showing up in Q4, and the price has begun dropping. Light-wise, the chart on the left shows that its popularity falls in the lower 31%. And the middle and right charts show us that brewers expect to break about even whenever it comes to, they're about balanced whenever it comes to long and short positions. So unfortunately, USDA doesn't publish acreage data for Falconers, but we could see the current trend for Falconers continuing with increasing quantities and dropping prices. We're not going to give the variety a low grade yet because its previous performance was so strong, but we downgraded it to a B minus this year. Simcoe is obviously a very popular and proprietary brand that's been really hard to get on the exchange. That said, we almost left it off this presentation because it's been really pedestrian. In our top C minus grade, you can see there's a lot more Simcoe available on the exchange than there's been traditionally in the past. In our second B minus grade, Simcoe's price is dropping faster than average, but the price is holding pretty well, selling at 8% higher than the average list price. We can see on the brewer data, we can see on the left that the exchange community uses a lot of Simcoe, and they're going to use more on the right. You can see that. But that said, like most of Simcoe's grades we were looking at, we were surprised just how balanced Simcoe looks in the middle. Other established proprietaries like Citra, Mosaic, Amarillo, you're really used to seeing a tall bar on the left, indicating a number of times more sellers than buyers, and we're just not seeing that here. So finally, the acreage for Simcoe is still growing well above average, which is giving us pause. The big picture is Simcoe's a very popular variety, an above average performer, so it gets barely an above average grade. Willamette, it just keeps, it's the hop that'll plug along and just keep going. It always shows up on our reports, and it's an older public aroma, so we wanted to have it here. You can see from our first two grades that Willamette is about as average and steady as it gets on the exchange. However, the brewers' data surprised us. On the left, we see the exchange community uses lots of Willamette, but it performs badly on the right and left. About 3 times more brewers expect to be selling, and not a ton will be increasing their usage. That gives the Willamette the worst brewer score today, an F. But acreage is slow and steady. It's not growing too fast, slower than most averages. So we give it a below average of a B minus. We expect it to continue to be pretty steady on the exchange. We're interested in El Dorado. It's a newish proprietary. Its acreage has been going crazy. 2015, it posted over 300% acreage growth, and it's a very popular on the exchange. It's number 8 in volume, number 8 in hop alerts. So that said, El Dorado is really average on the exchange and average performer on the exchange. We don't like its weak supply and demand score. Only 32% of what's listed is selling. In our survey data on the left chart, it shows us the brewers, oops, that's that. We already talked about that. The brewers on the left are not using a lot of El Dorado in the early going. It's only in the 23rd percentile. And on the right, we see that 4 times more brewers plan on using this variety. But again, in the middle, the contract positions are pretty balanced. We can see that El Dorado's price grade is about average, and the high acreage growth makes us a little squirrely, so El Dorado gets a C+ here. Azacca. Azacca is a new aroma on counter eye because the acreage growth is off the charts. Here's the acreage. In the early going, it's gone from 80 acres to 500. That's really fast, even for a new proprietary. But given our brewers' data, on the left of our brewer chart, less brewers are using Azacca than any other variety, even like Calypso, which is still at 80 acres. So there is good news. In the middle on the right, it shows that 3 times more brewers will be shopping for Azacca than selling, and most brewers expect to increase in the coming year. But mixed performance on the exchange and fast acres growth, we're going to give it a cautious C grade for Azacca. CTZ has 2 bright spots and 2 troubling grades. First, the bad news. Q3, Q4, we've seen a lot of CTZ for sale on the exchange, and it's just not selling at all. CTZ is currently selling 3% of what's listed. That's giving it its F- at the top there. It's taking a really long time to sell. This is one of our longer ones. It's almost a month, over a month on average. The brewer data was mostly bad news too, with a D-. On the left, brewers do use a lot of CTZ, 54% than most varieties. But in the middle, we expect 4 times more sellers than buyers in the coming year. Good news is the price has held up well, B grade. And CTZ is one of the rare cases in our presentation where acreage is actually falling, which we feel is appropriate. So we would almost bump CTZ scored because the acreage is falling. But it's such a high volume variety and there's so much available on the exchange, we don't see it, we're just going to give it a C- grade because we don't see it turning around a lot. Equinox is our final variety, or Equinaut. It's a very new proprietary. It started showing up about 2 years ago for us. And as you can see, on the Equinaut doesn't really perform anywhere very well on the exchange. Our top grade, only 8% of what's listed is currently selling. 92% of what's listed doesn't sell. Its price stability is only in the 36th percentile. Looking at the brewer data, you can see that not a lot of brewers are using Equinaut in the early going. It's in the lower 15th percentile. And the middle chart shows us pretty much that it's balanced. So having only been on the exchange for 2 crop years, maybe the newness is to blame here. But a lot of brewers don't seem to be have worked this into their flagship beers yet. So we're not seeing much here that makes us think that in a few years it'll be the next hot proprietary. So until proven otherwise, we gave Equinaut a below average grade of a D. So that's all 14 of my varieties in the report card today. I'm going to end today with a couple pro tips real quick. And pro tip number 1, if you want to stay on top of the latest asking prices for a specific variety, it's super simple to do with our hop alerts. Just go ahead and sign up for an account on the exchange. It'll prompt you to choose what varieties you're interested in and subscribe to. Then every time somebody lists a variety for sale, you'll get an email. If you're getting too many alerts, you can set filters to only receive specific crop years or price ranges. The exchange loves these things. Last month, we sent out 130,000 hop alerts. So if that gives you an idea how many brewers use these things. Pro tip number 2, if you want to check on what a variety's been selling for recently on this exchange, simply log in and find a matching listing. The low, high, and average, weighted average price are in the lower corner here, sales price. Keep in mind that the pricing history only includes identical recent sales. That means the same variety, crop year, and pellet type. Last pro tip, and we've already taken a look at this slide, but I want to go over the 4 features that we built specifically for brokers and growers. We have some brokers that use just one of these and others that use all 4 of the colored boxes along the top here. So let's start with the storefront. You want to get your own hop web store set up in a few minutes. The exchange truly handles everything for you. Here's Brian's site. Hey, Brian. Like payment processing, the only thing you need is a standard US bank account. Your buyers can pay from day one, credit card, Apple Pay, or directly from their bank account. Sellers pay no fees of any kind. You list your hops for $10, you get $10 whenever it sells. You can sleep at night knowing your web store is running on a battle-tested platform. It processed 10 million in transactions last year and 1 million pounds of hops. From day one, your site will be mobile optimized, like you see here, hosted on world-class elastic infrastructure, and your data center is protected by military-grade security, which is kind of cool anyways. We even make it easy for you to embed your listings anywhere on the internet. And of course, we help you connect to the exchange community. Your listings appear directly on the exchange, which receives more than 1,000 brewers, visitors every day. And every time you create a listing, we send out hop alerts to thousands of potential buyers. Finally, selling on the exchange is easy, and you don't have to include all these steps. If you simply have excess and a web store isn't for you, click on the Sell Hops button anywhere on our website. It's super easy. Order fulfillment's our next big blue box here. You don't have to be selling on the exchange to use this. Our back-end system lets you see all your employees see all your organization's orders in one spot. All they need is a web browser. Everything you need to fulfill an order is at your fingertips. Standard or LTL shipping information is right there. We give you internal fields, not visible to the customer. We give you a customizable checklist system so all your employees can see where the order stands. A wall for employees to take notes and communicate. Fulfilling the order is super easy. You fill in your tracking info, click complete. We email the customer and handle all the communication. Proceeds of the sale go into your bank account. Order fulfillment is a good segue into custom integration. At substantial volumes, we build custom business logic to connect to your existing systems. Examples include validating your customers' accounts in good standing before they can list hop for sale, automating shipping and updating of your databases, adding functionality to your website to view contract info, or even accepting online orders from your website. Finally, we've already been looking at a number of analytics and charts from our industry analytics system today. We're planning on rolling out probably a tiered, three-tier, one-time monthly subscription, and then like all-you-can-eat kind of systems in the near future. You could customize reports and whatnot. But in the meantime, what we've been doing is producing a monthly stat pack in PDF format for a fee. So we take requests. Stat pack slowly evolves over time and includes all the charts that we looked at today. Check back because we're always iterating. In fact, next month we'll be launching a new data analytics feature. It'll greatly improve the amount of data and type of data we store, so the reporting possibilities are going to go through the roof. So I want to thank you for your time today. If anything I've talked about is of interest to you, please reach out to me. My email address is right there. I've got stacks of business cards on Exchange, and I'll hang around after the presentation, so swing by and stay high. At the very least, please subscribe to our blog. That'll make sure you never miss an update. There are latest features, market reports, and all types of other goodies. If you need a little motivation, I've got a top 5 list here. I'll be putting the video. The Hop Stories guys have been awesome enough to be taking video. There they are. Video of this, so it's going to go on our blog. So email me. I'll be happy to get you a link of this recording. I'll be happy to send you all my slides, all my charts. So email me. I'd love to get you this stuff. I can't stress enough how much we want to be a good friend and partner to all the people in this room. This week, I loved hearing about all the amazing things you guys are up to, and I'm always love talking shop. If you have any questions or ideas, if you think we might be able to help, I'd love to hear more about what the future holds. So reach out, and thanks again for your time.